This is final tech update for ITGM 380, Section 02, Professor Galliano course portfolio. The objective of this course was to build an RTS framework that I could use to develop later. Today I'm going to be talking about that framework, showing it off, talking about some of the tech, and then looking to the future. I would have loved to build an entire RTS. Unfortunately, that takes a very long time, more than the time we have in this quarter. So I'm just focusing on the tech aspect, not the design aspect of the product at this time. We've got working camera. I like camera. WASD to move. Rotate out in the middle mouse button, right, all the way around, up, down, left, right, and then a snap back. When you're zoomed out, your camera moves a little bit faster than when you're zoomed in, your camera moves slower. That's a feature I picked up from playing Supreme Commander in the early 2000s. I think it's a great feature. We've got some functioning HUD, resources, time, and buildings, which we can click and select. I'm going to talk about this real quick. This looks like 4 unique floats. It's not. It's a struct. I use struct data for a lot of different reasons, but I know the first thing most people are going to say is, well, a struct is more expensive than a float. Why would you use it? You're right. A struct is more expensive than a float. However, a struct is less expensive than 4 or 5 floats. Using a struct here makes things a lot easier for me going forward. It means that I just need to change the struct data, not go in and change each of the unique floats. And additionally, it makes it cleaner on calls. If there's anything about RTS games that's going to nick you in the butt, it's going to be your calls. CPU cost is the most important thing in the world when you're developing this because of the amount of complexity in your development. So you're going to want to keep this cheap, and having one thing that's called is cheaper than having 5 things be called. So moving on from resources to time. Time is one of those features that every RTS game has, whether it's management or combat, and it's the kind of thing that most people forget to develop. So focused on that first. 0 is stop, 1 is default, 4 is that mock speed, everybody has that. We're going to leave it at 4 for now. We can actually see that the days are going to take over. That's month, that's year. And it's going to affect everything in the game, and we'll talk about that later. There is one feature it does not affect, and I will start with that first. It is my AI. I built these very last minute because they were not part of my original product plan, but I had the time, and I thought I'd squeeze one more feature in before the end of the quarter. These are random NPCs that get created when you click V, right? And they have different names. And they all do the, oh, that's also Howard, hello. That's Jack, there we go. I only wrote in four names, so it's just a proof of concept real quick, so we're going to restart. So those are in, and the last part of the UI are the buildings. So we can click, we can see that's called a house. That's a wood production, and that's a metal production. So we each see that they're unique. That little red arrow indicates the direction the building is placed, so we're going to place it here real quick. And we're going to watch that. Look at the top left, you're going to see the HUD numbers change. Cool, they're going to change, and we're going to see this little dot appear. That's the indication at the front. We can click, the background's going to gray out, the time is still going to tick. Not super legible, but again, not my priority right now. And we're going to see that there's a progress bar that isn't filled. So, you can't place a building on top of another building, obviously. That's nice and easy. However, you can't place a building on top of the doorway of another building, which is really important. And you also can't place a building when the doorways overlap. Why do I do it that way? I was reading the Folktale development logs, and they talked about this problem, in which they didn't add this feature until later, and it created a lot of problems for them afterwards. So I'm restarting just to get clean and focused information for everybody to view the video. So yeah, oh, by the way, rotation, if I didn't already say that. Cool, place the AI. They're going to go do some work for us. We can see that progress bar is filling up on that proxy. And then last but not least, the building is going to be done. Now we click it, we get the HUD information. We get operating costs and revenue generation. Again, not super clean, as in like the UI is very nice, but it does exactly what it needs to do. It tells me the information that we need to know. We turn up the time to 4, and we're going to see at the end of the day that the value of coin is going to take over, right? That's that 1.25. That's coming from here. If we have more than one house, let's get some more people in here, help construct quicker. Oh, cool. This we're going 4 times, so construction's already really fast. We're going to see that rate go up. This is super clean because of the fact that we're just using that single struct call. I talked about that earlier, right? Instead of calling all that float data, it's a little bit easier to do that. It's also easier when we add things that do different things in the world, right? Like these lumber buildings. So we clip the lumber yard, right? We can see it's got an operating cost. It's subtracting coin, and wood, it's adding wood. And so we're going to wait a moment. We're going to see that we're still gaining more wood because we have more. We're gaining coin because we have more houses than we have lumber yards. Why am I taking it only once per day? I'm taking it once per day because this is the way that most management games have been doing things lately. It's the way that Rise of Industries does it, and Off-World Trading Company. The age of each building have its each unit individual calls based on its own individual timer is kind of left over from the 90s combat. So we've gotten rid of that, usually for most developers. So what does this mean? this is it. Really quickly, like if you were to stop here and be like, that's the framework, that is the framework working. It's everything I want to have functioning. There's a lot more going on under the hood. I'm going to talk about that now. But if there's a point to stop and be like, that's it, it's here real quick. But let's talk a little bit more about some things here. I mentioned earlier that if there's any problem you're going to run into when making an RTS game, it's going to be your calls. So this isn't a building. This is what's called a ghost. There's actually no data here. All it's storing is its display data. That's struct data for costs, and nothing else. This is super important. The ghost is relatively simple in the fact that it doesn't get destroyed. It gets created once, so it's actually already in the game. We just can't see it. It's invisible. We click an object, we can see the ghost now, and we place it, and the ghost is actually still there. We just don't see it. It's not causing any problems with play. This is really valuable. If you're creating and then destroying every single time you do this, you will either destroy your CPU because you're constantly creating and destroying things, or you might miss a single reference point in C++ and you'll create a memory leak, which will also destroy your game. So that's a problem. Once they are placed, they become proxies. Proxy. Proxies they have their own HUD data. I'll talk about that in a moment. They then receive all of their own reference data immediately the moment they're created. So they only call one time to all the data, so they're not constantly creating new reference points. It's very clean. It's much cheaper than consistent reference calling. And then they get their own time data as well, which is what allows them to be built depending on the time of the game. Right? You're going to see that's basically going to be instantaneous. Okay, and then place this house, and we're going to see this one's going to take significantly longer to build. That's how that all works. It's going to take forever. Let's just finish off. Okay, cool. Proxies are then logged in the construction manager. There's one construction manager in the game. It's created by the controller. We've already seen this earlier with the resource, but I only create the ghost once, and I create the construction manager once. From there, the buildings are built, they are placed, they become the building. All buildings are derived from a building master blueprint, which is great because it means that all of the data is structured the same. A child of the building master is the building production master, and the building residential master, they'll children are in the houses, the metal, and the wood. This is super useful because when you come in here, you're going to see all my HUDs: main, NPC, proxy, and then building HUD. There's no data in here. This is the right way to build this in the fact that there's only one building HUD. So even though these two look different, right? The HUD is the exact same. This is super important. I'm not creating a different HUD for every object in the game. I'm not going to have to do that. The same way that this works for creating all of these blueprints. Because I'm using that same struct data everywhere, I don't have to come in here and create unique calls and unique getters and unique setters. All I have to do is come in here, change the display mesh. This is a house. It looks like a house. Change the operating costs. Change how much revenue is made. And that's it. Right? I don't have to make 50,000 unique blueprints. I don't have to make 50,000 unique UIs. I don't have to worry about setting up unique types of calls to reduce costs later. It's all been done. So a big part of this product isn't the stuff you're going to see. It's all of the under the hood calls and things that are being made in all of these blueprints. And that are separated out in such a way that later when I come in and add new content, it's going to be much easier than starting from the ground up. So thank you for watching this rather long video, and I hope you all have a wonderful winter break.